Welcome back to Head Trauma. We're the Trauma Guys. I'm Lee.
I'm Fayaz. How are you today?
All right, man. Yes.
Is it daytime? I have no idea. I don't even know what time it is, man. I have no idea.
Well, we've been talking a little bit. We did a little bit of UFC earlier. We're going to talk a little bit about the dark side of wrestling, season 2, New Jack. So
That's right, New Jack.
So is New Jack a wrestler that you knew before? He is somebody I've known for a while. Did you know about New Jack?
Man, a little bit. A little bit. You know, if you watched any ECW back in the day, or you know New Jack, right?
Yeah.
You know New Jack. You know, ECW, man, brought up a lot of different guys, man. You know, that's where the Dudley Boys, you know, before
Sandman.
they acquired a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rob Van Dam, Taz.
The crazy thing about ECW, man, it was all like hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
Majority of it.
Yeah, well, that was kind of their stick when it started. But let's kind of go back a little bit to the first when New Jack first showed up. Started wrestling. He wrestled for Jim Cornette and Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
He did.
So when Jim first saw him, you know, he was like, he put him and Mustafa together because he figured he could talk. Told him to go out and make a promo, piss off white people. It's basically how he started his stick, and he didn't pull no punches whatsoever. He
did not.
No, and right off the bat, you know, he was who he was. Like they said, you know, there's Jerome Young, and then there's New Jack, and there seem to be one. They don't have like, you know.
There was a small gray area. Like it was just, they were almost the same person. They weren't even sure if they knew Jerome. I think they just only knew New Jack.
New Jack, yeah.
And that dude lives New Jack. I mean, that even when you're listening to him during the interviews, when they're asking him questions and things like that, he's New Jack, man.
Yeah, he's that. You know, he is. But at the same time,
he's that guy.
He's out of control.
That guy doesn't care. I mean, most of the stories. I mean, that's how crazy this guy is. Most of the stories he told about him getting ready for a match, about to go out and do a match. What was he doing back in the freaking locker room?
Cocaine.
He's getting high. The dude. I'm not talking about getting high. I'm not talking about smoking weed, guys. I'm talking about this guy is snorting coke, right? And then he's going out and doing all this crazy stuff, man. They're jumping off of scaffoldings.
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is the first promo he made when he was in Smoky Mountain, and he said, "I want to give a shout out to OJ. You took 2 of them out. Thank you." I'm like, oh my God, did you just thank OJ?
2 less we got to worry about.
Yeah, 2 less we got to worry about. I'm like, oh my God.
Dude, I just started laughing when I saw that. I was like, are you kidding me right now? That was the craziest thing. And dude, that was crazy, man. You know, and he played that part to the T.
Yeah,
and he took it, you know, for being what Smoky Mountain Wrestling was, he took that deal as far as he could possibly go.
Yeah, well, not just that, they said that they were so ticked off at him one night that they had to have the cops because people were out back with bricks and rocks and bats waiting for them to come out. The police had to take them out and drive them out of town. So he's like, I knew I got over. So, but their characters sometimes blurred a little bit of that lines a little too much. They were a little too close to what they were actually doing and saying. I felt a little like, you know, I've heard the stories of New Jack, and I've seen him back in the day in ECW. I watched his stuff, you know, but I didn't always know if some of them stories were true or not till now. I mean, you know, you hear stories about stuff, and sometimes that's myth, and sometimes that's legend, and sometimes it's what would they say, urban legend. You know, people say stuff, but is it really true? Did it really happen?
You know, or like part of the story's true, but it was exaggerated.
Yeah.
You know, they become, you know, tall tales, you know.
And
no,
sort of
thing, but
not this guy. They said no. They said he got the ECW, and they met Paulie Dangerously, you know, Paul Heyman. They were getting started on all this, and and they just kind of wanted to go to the next level of extreme. And then we get to the very first person that he hurts, that doesn't need that kid, the mass transit, they called him, because he was a big, heavy kid.
Yeah, the mass transit kid, man.
And
he had the two midgets with him.
Yeah, the two little guys with him, yeah. And even the two little guys said, when they first got there, they thought, wow, we're actually going to get to be on this show. And then they asked if that one guy wanted to try out. And he said, yeah, so he kind of left his little buddies behind, and they were like, what the hell, man? We got you here. We were the wrestlers. We were helping you.
Somebody didn't show up that night, right?
Yeah.
So the guy New Jack was gonna wrestle didn't make it. So they're like, well, here, we're gonna give you this kid, and this kid, and I don't know what it was, but he beat the crap out of that kid, man. That kid lied about
his age. Yeah, he told him he was 21 and he was only 17.
But he was only 17, which I'm sure nowadays you have to do a little more to prove that.
Yeah.
Or there's no really backstory on that. We don't know if Paul Heyman looked further into that and maybe he had bad forged documentation, whatever it may be, to prove that. In either case, he went out there, man, and he just tore this kid up, man.
But the reason why New Jack, if you remember, parts of the stories would tell you when the kid walked up and said he wanted to get some offense, he wanted to backdrop him through a table and whatnot, and New Jack looked at him like, no. He said, well, could you at least give me a little color? And he just walked out. And color means blood. If you're not a wrestling and you don't know the kayfabe names as it goes, color means blood. So that kid went out there, and of all people, that's the dude you don't want to do that with. He feels disrespected right off the bat. And I think a lot of that deal with being in Smoky Mountain and those people throwing the N-word at him all the time, and him not being used to that. So he thought everywhere he went, people were going to use that with him. So he just, right off the bat, but, he said he had a scalpel, a surgical scalpel, taped to a stick that he carried on him. And he tried to cut the kid's head. It wouldn't cut. So he cut him on the hairline.
Right. He cut him across.
Yeah.
He cut him across. I think the kid just bled out, man. He cut him so bad. But then after he cut him, he's on the ground, dude's bleeding, man. I mean, he's jumping off the corner.
With chairs and stuff.
I mean, he's flying off the corner, landing on him with chairs, and he's hitting them, and oh man, it was so bad, man.
But you could hear his dad.
It was so bad. The kid's dad was in the deal going. He's 17 years old. Where's the ref? He's 17 years old.
Yeah.
Where's the ref?
You need to stop this.
Yeah. You know what, man? Part of me says, okay, maybe New Jack shouldn't have gone that far with it, right? But part of me says, you lied and said you were 21, but you're not. Now could he have handled it if he was 21? No. Right? But it sounds to me like his dad knew that he lied about his age too.
Yeah, so they said he went to the hospital. He had to get 50 stitches in his head, something to that effect.
Yeah.
Then New Jack,
there was nerve damage in his head or something like that, and he decided to never do it again.
Yeah. So New Jack then went through that trial, and he said it was a bunch of old white women and one 80-year-old black man. And he said, I was looking at him like he was going to be the savior of my soul. He said he kept nodding off, and I kept thinking, you better stay awake.
I was like, wake up, man. You're all I got.
Now,
wake up, you're all I got.
Yeah, so after they went through it and they found out that basically the kid lied, said he was 21, and then also after Paul Heyman got on the stand and said, that his dad used the N-word towards him, kind of got him revved up, right? So they kind of got through that one, and it was, he was found not guilty. And then, not too many years later, he goes to the Gypsy Joe, that 72-year-old man that said that, hey, I don't feel any pain. I'm this gentleman journey. Like, why are 72-year-old men still wrestling? I even wonder sometimes when I see these like there's legends out there, but there comes a spot when you just got to stop and say, enough's enough.
Was he a guy that had been wrestling for a while?
Yeah, that old man, Gypsy Joe.
That he was just some guy that was doing it.
No.
Like he wasn't even like a journeyman wrestler.
No. Gypsy Joe was one of those old school journeyman wrestlers that wrestled wherever, and he told him that he was going to show him a few things, kid, and that right there set New Jack off. That's where he beat that old man up because the guy would not.
He beat him up bad, man. He was hitting him with foam. He was hitting him with that bat on the head.
Yeah, repeatedly
beating him into the chairs. I mean, he beat that dude up badly, man. And while he's beating that dude up, all you can think is, man, that guy's 72 years old.
Yeah.
He's 72.
And he wasn't even thinking about it.
72 years old.
He beat him down so the dude couldn't get up anymore. But
it was oh,
yeah,
that was so bad. But again, right? Is it a 50-50 thing? It's New Jack losing, going off the handle, but then he took that disrespectfully, like, man.
Yeah, but disrespectful of words. You can take words disrespectful, but at the same time, the guy wasn't selling for him. And selling means when I hit you or kick you, you give a little like it, you feel it. Instead, I have to really hit you or whatever to prove.
Really hit you.
Yeah. So, in a way, it's kind of that, but yeah, it's still a 72-year-old man, dude. I mean, it's kind of, even though he wrestled for a long time, doesn't mean his body, he looked awful, still wearing that Speedo looking thing. But it happens.
I know, right?
And then we talk about Vic Grimes. So when they're in the ECW, your camera went off, man. Yeah. So when they're in the ECW, Vic Grimes and him have a match, and they go up on a scaffold up high, and they've been fighting, and they're supposed to both go off through the tables. Right. Well, Vic decides up there, I don't want to go, and New Jack's one of those guys.
He doesn't go.
Yeah, he's like, no, man, we're gonna go. You're gonna go now. So they're arguing up there, and he decides, I'm just gonna do it. He pulls Vic off the thing, and when they land on the ground, not only through the tables, but New Jack's head hits the ground, and Grimes lands on him, fracturing his skull, and it breaks his leg.
Yep.
So he's messed up from now on. He said,
So he recovers, right? Here's what's the crazy thing about New Jack. The guy recovers, comes back to the show. Grimes walks back up to him, apologizes to him after a year, and New Jack says, "Hey, look, man, I hadn't talked to this guy. Didn't call me, didn't come see me." A hospital, never said a word to me, and then he's gonna come up and apologize to me after a year. It's like, all right, I got you. So Sandman says he's with New Jack earlier, and he's buying a stun gun because he's gonna hit him with the stun gun. Takes him up top, right? Dude doesn't want to go over, so he hits him with the stun gun. You can see him doing it. Hits him with a stun gun. He's like, "Hey, lay off, man. I can't feel my legs." And he tells him, "It don't matter. You won't need them." And then, dude, that was the most horrible toss I've ever seen. Dude, it just looked bad. I was like, there's no way he's going to fall properly. He just tossed him over. I mean...
And you know what? The worst thing he got
saved him. If you watch that, Huh?
That ring rope saved him. When he hit his ring rope and bounced off.
Well, I think the only other thing that saved him is he didn't go through the table.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice when he hits the table falls and he slides off of it. I think that and him hitting the rope the way that is the only thing that saved him. Dude, had he gone into the table, he was done, man.
Well, not just that. They said if he would have missed those ropes and hit the floor, it probably have killed him.
Oh God, man! Just to watch that video made me cringe. And could you imagine? That even like going through his mind? Like you don't even know this guy, right? This guy's about to do that to you. You don't even know. Now he was mad at him.
Yeah, but
to tell the guy, don't worry about it. You ain't gonna need him, and then just got his legs numb and just threw him over, man. So
he had a dislocated ankle and a couple of things, but that it could have been way worse than that. It could have been some major. It could have been death. And I mean, is that kind of like attempted homicide?
I don't think it's attempted homicide. They pose that question. And listen. It's attempted homicide. It's attempted homicide if you weren't expecting to go over. No, or not even that. Like, you can't really say it's attempted homicide. I mean, it was part of the show.
Yeah,
he got hit with the stun gun, he didn't know about because it was extreme.
I get that,
but he got hit with it, and it was hardcore. So he just figured, New Jack's just using a stun gun. It is what it is, right? And then he threw him over. I don't know if that's attempted homicide or he misunderstood. Because New Jack, if they would have went to court over that, he could have said, "Look, man, we're in the middle of a match." He misunderstood. I mean, what did he think we were going to do up there? We're hardcore. We're wrestlers. Right. I'm throwing him over the top. I mean, if he wasn't thinking, then, maybe he should have spoke up. Maybe he should have said something. But it was my understanding he knew that that's what the tables were there for. I was throwing him into the table. Right?
Yeah.
He could have done that. Right? I mean, so you can't really call it attempted homicide. Even though
he went down and said, that's payback. He did.
Yeah.
He went down and told him, that's payback.
Right.
So
he goes down and tells him, right? But whoever hears that, they don't know, right? All they know is that they just think that's part of the show. They don't know that he wanted to. That was the whole. That's where that blur came in, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the blur between the character and the real guy. But then there was more blur where every time they would talk about him taking it to a certain level or crossing the line, so to say, right? Was he really crossing the line, right? How do you know he was crossing the line? Could you prove he was crossing the line if you were trying to take him to court over it or anything like that? Because the truth of the matter is, the match is the match, and all he has to say is, "Look, I thought you understood what we were doing. I didn't realize that, we weren't going to do that."
Yeah. And, just like Jim Cornette said, there came a point when, New Jack doesn't get a lot of bookings, a lot of places, because people, nowadays, you can just look up and find out, and they're like, I don't want to wrestle that dude. It's not going to happen. So he's not getting as much work as he used to, so, but then he has the, where he does the Hunter Red, where he, there's like nobody in the building, and this guy.
God.
This guy decides, right? He comes up to him and says, "We're gonna talk about the match now." He said, "No, we'll go in the back and talk to him." He said, "No, I want to talk." He's like, "No, we'll go in the back. We'll talk about the match."
Right.
And he says, "I get back out there and I'm laying it out," and this guy gets ticked off and walks away. And he's like, "Am I being set up? Is this a joke on me?" So he goes out there and he says the guy goes right after him, this Hunter Red guy, and hits him. He punched him in the nose and he punched him in the eye as hard as he could. And he's like, "Are you really trying to do this to me? Are you really trying to go?"
He asked him, he says, "You trying to handle me?"
Yeah, you trying to handle me?
He asked me, he said, "Are you trying to handle me right now?" And he goes, "And that's it." Because remember when he pushed him up against the rope. And he's like, "You trying to handle me?" He's trying to talk to him. And the guy just kept working. And so he was like, "Okay." And so he pulls a knife out of his pocket and he goes to stabbing the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, and just
yeah.
he goes, And here was New Jack's excuse. This was the dude. This is where I almost just lost it, dude. I was laughing. And, you know, you shouldn't laugh at things like that, but the way he plays it out with his attitude just is unbelievable to me. He says, well, the media said I stabbed him 14 times. I counted. It was only 9. I was like, what do you mean it was only 9? Dude, he goes, I felt the blade going in and out of his skin. I counted him. It was only 9.
Yeah.
I'm like, 9, 14. It still probably sucked. It doesn't matter how many it was.
Did you see the look on D'Lo Brown's face when they're showing him the video? And he's like, is he stabbing that?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Oh, God. He's like, oh, my God, is he stabbing? And you know what's funny is I didn't realize that was a real reaction. I thought they were showing D'Lo that, like, as a memory type deal.
That was his first time.
I didn't realize that he had never seen it, him or Cornette.
Yeah.
Cornette had never seen it either, and they were both like, oh, my God. They couldn't believe it. They thought he was trying to kill this dude. And when you watch the video, that's what it looks like. But then there comes that thing, right? Then there's that thing again. Well, we're wrestling a hardcore match, right? You knew I was going to do this, and I wasn't digging the knife into you. I was just, prying at you. He could say, hey, man, I was just sticking them. And,
yeah, but he did get arrested.
A couple of them went too far. Huh?
He did get arrested for that. He went to jail.
He did get arrested. He went to jail.
He was in jail for 3 weeks. And that Hunter Red guy, I think his name is like William Lane. I think that's his real name, is William Lane. So
Hunter Red tells him, hey, look, man, take me on the road with you. Yeah,
we'll do this as a...
Take me on the road with you.
No, he wanted to do the circuit and be like, we're going to use this as I'm trying to get my revenge on New Jack for what he did for me, for stabbing me. He wanted to use it as part of their gimmick to get them to go around and use that as their story to get heat and see, if people come out and watch. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. But you got to drop them charges first. So they dropped the charges.
Yeah.
He said, I went and packed my stuff up, I put it in storage, and I left my ass with it.
And I left. You know what's funny though? Is earlier in the show, he did the same thing. He got the little guys to vouch for him.
Vouch for him, yeah.
Right? Vouch for him, and he said, we'll put you in the WWE, whatever it is. And then they asked the guy, did he actually do that for you? And he did it.
Yes.
He did it. He goes, yeah, man, I did my partner, man. I remember walking out. We did a match. We're going to do a match against whatever it is. They announced, Stephanie McMahon announced my name. He actually put those guys over a little, like helped them out a little bit. This Hunter Red guy, though, he was out on that. He wasn't helping him out.
No. Well, I think he did what he had to do to keep himself out of trouble. And he said, then my mama called and said, what did you do, Jerome? You stabbing them people? He said, shut up. He said, you don't even know what you're talking about. It was just a match. It was just something we were doing. You don't have an idea what's going on. He said, I never liked my mama anyway.
Right. How many of your kids got action figures, Mom? That was his thing.
Yeah.
How many of your kids got action figures, Mom? But remember, he came from that sordid past, right? The sordid past where right, he watched his dad stab his mom.
Watch his dad shoot his mom.
Watched his dad shoot his mom. I mean, dude, he's got to be a little messed up in the head, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just what
well, not just that, but the brain damage from the head trauma we're talking about,
right?
But a fractured skull ain't nothing to
He's
mess with.
got a lot of it.
Yeah, and a fractured skull,
not at all.
But the cocaine don't help out none either, though. That's kind of his.
No.
And they asked him, so
not at all. And
so if they did a movie about you, what would the end scene be? He said, me sitting in a wheelchair, snorting cocaine, giving everybody the finger.
And all I could do is laugh when he said that, man. And then they showed like the silhouette of the old man covered in dust, flipping everybody off. I I was like, that's this guy, man. That's how he's gonna go. That's just how he's gonna go. Man.
Yeah,
that's what it's gonna be.
Exactly. That's gonna be his life. That's gonna be his everything. He's known as that dude, man. That's where he's going.
Oh man, it's crazy, man. That guy was crazy, man. That was probably one of the craziest guys I'd ever seen. But I'm glad I watched it. And I'm glad we got to talk about that guy. That guy was awesome.
All right. Well, if you guys got any comments, want to know about anything, we're going to be doing every week. We're going to do something about Dark Side of the Ring. We're going to do our little talk to each other about the episode, what we thought about what happened. Leave a comment down below. Hit that subscribe bell. Give us a thumbs up or give us a thumbs down. I don't care. Give us something. Show us a little something. But you got something to say before we go, man?
Yeah, man. If you guys, you guys got a wrestler or anything, or an episode you want us to cover or check out, or anything like that, man, let us know. If you're an up and coming professional wrestler, man, send us some stuff with your moves on it, man. We'd love to go over some stuff. We're not haters, so. We're definitely in support of things like that too, man. We think stuff like that's awesome. So.
All right, we are the Trauma Guys. I believe.
I'm Fayaz.
And we'll see you later.